request that we start our third day with a word of prayer from Dr. Nancy Madhiri. Karibu.
Good morning. Please let us stand and pray. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Lord, we come before you this morning with thankful hearts, dear Lord. We've been here for 2 days now, and this is our third day, dear Lord. And every day we have called upon you to be with us, and we have seen your presence, dear Lord. Lord, in this room, we can say that we have just about the brightest minds gathered here, dear Lord. And we know, dear Lord, that we can nurture intelligence. But Lord, we know that wisdom is your exclusive domain. We ask you today to give us wisdom so that we can be able to combine with the intelligence that you've given us, and so that the works that we put forward may not only be for our own good, but for the good of our people and the glory of your holy name. And we ask all this in the mighty name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
All right, so today is our third and last day. I feel inspired in that style of Bishop Margaret Wanjiru to start telling you, turn to your neighbor and tell them it's beautiful to be on the third day. Sindio? The first day was beautiful, the second one was beautiful, the third one should be awesome, right? Yeah, so I invite you to bring this last day in the most beautiful way that we can. And of course, we are also being joined even today by our online audience. And we have a lot of respect for them that they have also spared time to be with us. Just before we start anything, I request that all the presenters to just make sure that their presentations are filed with our technical team. Over and above that, in the very way we announced yesterday, that we will be taking photographs in case you have any issue with you being photographed or you have reservations on the way your photo should be used. Kindly let us know so that we spare you from any embarrassment in the near future. And I think it's also fair that we join the Kenyatta University fraternity over whatever happened to them at the start of this week. What should we tell them? I think we should tell them or encourage them in the words of one of our former scholars here who went to Laikipia University. His name is Goro Kamau. He wrote in a short story called or titled, When the Sun Goes Down. And he says, when the sun goes down, don't cry, because the tears will stop you from seeing the stars. So the Kenyatta University fraternity, and some of them are also joining us here. Poleni sana for what happened. Today is also the International Day of Forests, and the theme is Forest and Innovation, New Solutions for a Better World. And if you look at, it's like the conference committee was just inspired to make sure that the climate change discussions happen on the International Day of Forests, because the panel discussion is actually going to look at some of the advancements that we've made as a country and, of course, as the world in the implementation of the Paris Agreement. And over and above that, all the discussions that are usually pushed by the UNFCCC. We have our keynote speaker today being Dr. Ganga Rao Nadigatia. I think Nadigatla. Professor Kimuto will be leading us in knowing how well to pronounce that name. He will also be giving us his bio in detail, but briefly, He's a man who's been involved so much in the development of plant products that are climate smart, right? Or climate smart agriculture. Over and above that, our panelists for today, the first one is Dr. Bernard Kirui, who is a lecturer here in the Department of Natural Resources in Egerton University. And he will be joined by Ms. Olivia Adhiambo, who is with Climate Policy Africa. And I'm told she's actually our former student. So it looks like Dr. Kirui will be interacting with his former student. A beautiful way to see what happens when someone leaves Egerton, they go there, and then they can come back and engage us with what they have gained so far and what they are doing in advancing the skills they acquired when they were students. The chair for today is Professor Paul Kimurto. Our rapporteur for this morning session is Professor Mary Omwamba, and I see them in the room. The opening remarks will be given by Dr. Miriam Cherimbo, but just allow me now to invite, let me invite Dr. Miriam Cherimbo to come and give us the opening remarks. But as she comes, allow me to recognize the presence of our Vice Chancellor, Professor Isaac Kibwage, as well as our DVC, Planning and Administration. That's Professor Richard Mulwa. Si tuwapigie makofi. Asante sana. Karibu.
Our Vice Chancellor, our DVCs, all protocols observed, good morning. I extend my warm welcome to all the participants for day 3, which is our last day for the the conference. We are honored to have the keynote speakers, one who is in agricultural innovation and product development, who is joining us virtually from Mozambique. We have 2 panel discussants who will join us in person to discuss the environment, climate change, and natural resource and policy management. I want to just mention a few highlights of day 2, which were focusing on the trends in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, One Health approach, health system management, health financing, pandemic preparedness, and surveillance. Also, we were focusing on sustainable and safe food systems, biotechnology, and climate change, smart agriculture for healthier diets. We received our keynote address from Professor Njiru on blue economy, and he dived in the opportunities that exist in the blue economy and how to make Kenya self-sufficient and reduce the external borrowing. He talked about full exploitation and utilization of resources in a sustainable way. He noted there are many innovative ways in which we can source for funding, and he noted that by partnering with government to achieve the political agenda can be a milestone to us getting funding for the research that we want. He summarized his keynote address by noting that the future lies with the youth, but he noted that palipo na wazee hapaharibiki neno. This means that even if the youth or the researchers are very brilliant, they still need mentorship from the seasoned researchers. The panel discussion was also led, we had 3 participants in the panel discussion, Professor Nzula Kitaka, Dr. Joy Mugambi, Dr. Imgad Jordan. Professor Kitaka continued the discussion on the blue economy and the water resource utilization. And she noted that stakeholder analysis and mapping and community engagement research is very key in natural resource research. And she noted the importance of maximizing collaboration with the stakeholders for the success of research, and also it is important also to deliver the outputs of the research to the stakeholders once the research is concluded. Dr. Imgard took us through One Health approach, which she noted entails the interplay between human and animal health. She noted that what we feed the animals eventually is what affects the human health. She also discussed the issues of planetary health, which also is an interplay of human, animal, aquatic life, and environmental health. She noted that over-reliance on animal sources of food contribute to greenhouse gas emissions, and also contribution of carbon dioxide gases, and therefore WHO is recommending that we use only 300 grams of meat per week and 1 egg per week. So we can ask ourselves how much we have taken in the course of this conference. She noted that pollution of the environment, especially our water masses, as an environmental impact, and noted the impact of heavy metals, antibiotic resistance, and microplastics in the fish and even in the water. And this was also in line to the earlier discussion on the presence of heavy metals in the fish in Lake Nakuru, and also the microplastics and antibiotic products resistance in some of the food products. Joy Mugambi took us through the One Health. She noted that the country has overemphasized on secondary health care at the expense of primary health care. And she noted that the government has passed and is implementing the 4 acts that seek to reverse this trend. And that's why the Social Health Insurance Fund is now there to seek and ensure mitigating the challenges experienced in implementing the NHIF. She also informed us as participants that when the government starts registering the households for this social health insurance, we should ensure that we get registered so that we are guaranteed the access of health care services. We concluded with a keynote address from Dr. Susan White on the innovations for computing or the digital era, where she was talking on human-centered approaches for innovative solutions, designing interventions with the Kenyan youths that are living with type 1 diabetes. And she noted that while mobile applications, which are very common nowadays, exist, very few people in the rural areas use these mobile phone applications because of the economic challenges that are coming along. And she noted that while they were intending to develop a mobile app in their research, when they started working with the caregivers, with the local and community engagements teams, the medical facilities in the rural areas, they noted the mobile app may not be relevant to the people living in the rural areas, and that's why they ended up developing a product that is the diary for the people living with diabetes to monitor their health. And with all that, I end with a quote from Joy Mugambi, who said, "Our problems are local. We have to develop innovative homegrown solutions for the challenges that we face in our country." And our day ended with a climax of networking session and a cocktail that ended up at around 7. Thank you very much. I will welcome the director to make a remark and welcome the VC.
Thank you very much, Chair, Dr. Charibo. I will request the permission of the Vice Chancellor to invite the keynote speaker who is online and who was to start a little earlier so that he may be able to join another meeting that he's supposed to join. So with the permission, then I will invite Professor Kimurto to read his bio so that he can start his presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, our Vice Chancellor, Professor Isaac Kibuage, our DVCs, keynote speakers who are online and those who are physically with us, the panelists of the day, and all the participants in the room and also outside, good morning. We will be chairing this session together with my colleague, Professor Omwamba. We come from the Department of, from the Faculty of Agriculture, both of us. I am from the crop science, and she comes from the dairy. As it has been said, we have two sessions for this morning portion. We've added one additional activity to celebrate the International Day of Forests. Bearing in mind that our two panelists are foresters, we want to give them an opportunity to plant trees. So we will start by keynote speaker. I want to introduce him. I have known to him Dr. Kankarao Nadikalia. He's actually a dryland legume and cereals product development breeder, currently at CIMMYT, International Wheat, Maize, and Crop Improvement Center in Nairobi. Kankarao has been in ICRISAT for a very long time. He is a breeder with 26 years of experience, or postdoctorate research experience, and he studied in wheat, maize, sunflower, castor, chickpea while working in India. And later on, he came to Africa, and he was based in Nairobi at the ICRISAT regional office. So he has worked in several Eastern and Southern African countries. Among his key contributions as a breeder, he's been responsible in the development of 3 varieties of wheat, which has been registered in India, commercially produced in several acres. He also has 7 genetic stocks for cultivation in the Indian Wheat Improvement Program. And as I've said, in 2008, he came to Nairobi, and he has worked on more than 17 pigeon bee varieties in collaboration with international research systems in Kenya, Malawi, Mozambique, Tanzania, and Zambia. He has also worked on more than 12 chickpea varieties and several other crops in the dryland which have been grown and produced in Uganda, Ethiopia, Tanzania, and even Kenya. He is currently in charge of product development, commercializing and converting the innovations into products. His title of presentation is already online. We request him to, his title is already on the slide. Research and Technology Innovation for Sustainable and Safe Food Systems, Biotechnology and Climate Smart Agriculture. Kankarao, the floor is yours. We are going to give you 20 minutes and maybe some 10 minutes of introduction of some questions. Kankarao, are you there?
Thank you very much, Paul. Hope I'm audible. My internet is a bit unstable. I am in a northern part of Mozambique, in the small town called Lichinga. Soon I might switch off my video so that the bandwidth will be sufficient to deliver the lecture. At the outset, I would like to thank you, the University Management, Vice Chancellor, DVCs and my fellow collaborators like Paul Kimuto, Miriam, and everyone. It is an honor for me to present this keynote lecture at the Egerton University. Since I came to Kenya, this is the one organization I am closely collaborating for the better cause for the farming family. Hope you are hearing.
Yes, Kangaroo, you can just continue. Please continue with your presentation.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to switch it off my video because here internet is a bit unstable. Let me do that one and then I move to the slides.
So you are able to move your slides?
Okay. Yeah, I can move slides from here.
Okay.
Okay, good. The topic is just relevant to the conference you have, 15th Biennial Conference. It is related with the oil food systems that are sustainable and safe for the consumption, and also what are the biotechnological innovations and the climate smart practices we can do to strengthen the food systems. Many of you might be knowing the what is a food system, but it is a kind of complex thing. It covers everything around ourselves, ranging from all the value chain actors, whether it is from the production, the processing, and even food industry. It also covers both food and non-food agriculture products. The most important thing is here, the food system also covers the storage, aggregation, post-harvest handling, including the logistics kind of thing, transportation, distribution, at the consumption at the household level. Any interventions we make at the food system level, it has a huge impact, both for the affordability and the accessibility of the food, and also the climate adaptation. If you look at the food system, it is, as I alluded, it is a complex system. It involves the food supply chains, also food environment, and also various economic, cognitive, and other situational factors also affect, including the consumer behaviors. That will lead to ultimately the safe and healthy food systems. That is what the conference sub-theme also. If you look at each of these components carefully, it covers everything around us. This is also the various components of the food system that gives us the sustainability in the food system. As a researchers, the developing partners, we need to work each and everything to have a complete impact of the whatever the products or innovations we are developing, so that we will be having transformative food systems in our communities. Just I wanted to show some data. Most of you might be knowing. When we talk about the food systems, I'm concentrating more on the crops because I think yesterday and day before we might have listened to other agricultural sectors like the livestock and the fisheries. Here, these are the various commodities grown in Kenya, starting from coffee, sugarcane, macadamia, and edible oils, etc. The point I wanted to highlight here, there are some commodities, they are giving a lot of export revenue. Some commodities we are importing a lot, and we are spending a lot of the currency. What we need to concentrate here as a country, we need to develop value chains along all actors, starting from production all the way to consumption, so that we will be able to strengthen them. Otherwise, we will be looking at in isolation, we may not be able to develop the value chain systems. For example, you take the wheat. Kenya imports about 2 million tons of wheat. It is a huge exchequer on the government. How best, as a researchers, we will be able to help the government to reduce the imports? And if some commodities are exporting, how best we can help them to increase the production and have a better export earnings? And this is an extension of the earlier slide. Here, the green gram, also Kenya is exporting bit of pigeon pea and a bit of barley. My request to all the researchers attending this conference is, each one of us should take the prioritized value chains at your research organizations or your institution and able to develop the whole value chain. Then only we will be able to have a sustainable agri-food systems. Just I wanted to give an example from India. I don't have a data for the Kenya, that's why I'm showing the example how we need to look at the data collection, compilation, and utilization. This is about the varietal replacement rate of the major field crops in India last 2 to 3 years. If you look at the rice, they have released about 293 varieties, but most of the varieties are old. For example, if you take the rice, about 164 varieties are more than 10 years old. What does it mean? Even though we develop a lot of technologies, if those technologies are not reaching to the farmers, we are not in a position to reap the benefits of our research and our development efforts. Even you look at the other crops, wheat is a bit better. Pigeon pea is not that good. All the crops highlighted with the red, they are not so good. With the highlighted with the green, they are doing a bit better. Columns highlighted with the bit lighter green, they are doing in between the good and the bad. Another area we need to look at when we say that the climate change is another important component in our cropping our food systems, we also look into what are the other inputs we are using. Are we using the water? Are we using the fertilizer? If we are using the fertilizer, are we efficiently using it? Are we using the water efficiently? This is another example, again from India, to showcase the fertilizer consumption increased in about 10 times from 1970 to 2013. However, the most disturbing thing is fertilizer use efficiency has been reduced by 2.25 times. What does it mean? Whatever the fertilizer you are applying, 2.25 times is getting wasted than earlier days. That means whatever the improvements we are making, that is not giving any benefits to the farmers because of the ineffective and inefficient use of fertilizers. If you look at this simple arithmetic, the Indian government, India is losing about 9.8 billion tons of fertilizer applied as a country as a whole. It is not a small amount. We need to look at the countries like Kenya. If we are trying to enhance the fertilizer application, we also simultaneously look into the fertilizer use efficiency so that we will be able to learn the lessons from the other countries where they're already applying the huge quantities of fertilizer. When it comes to climate change, Kenya loses about 2 to 2.4% of GDP annually due to effects of climate change, such as drought, floods, etc. among those various climate change effects, drought is the most important one. About 8% of GDP lost every 5 years. And just I want to give two important projects presently being implemented in Kenya. One is ICRA. It is funded by World Bank, accelerating impacts of CJR climate research for Africa. World Bank gave about the $60 million US. Kenya is one of the beneficiary for this project. And another project is funded by Green Climate Fund. It is about 34 million. What I wanted to emphasize here, whatever the research results or the developmental effort these projects are making, we need to scale it up. Otherwise, we will be just talking about the climate change and its effects. We may not be making much difference. Under this ICRA project, when I was in Egerton, we started implementing this project in 3 counties, Kitui, Makwini, and Taita Taveta, in order to promote the climate resilient crops and cultivars. And also we were promoting also community seed banks so that the farmers have the seed at their doorsteps, and also practicing the good agriculture practices so that the effective genetic potential being realized at the farmers' fields. And we also emphasized on the engagement of youth and women in these interventions. When we talk about the climate change, whether all these interventions are financially viable in those crop value chains, we need to evaluate them. Otherwise, just taking some yield data or some other data, it may not be useful unless we have a thorough analysis on the financial benefits to the smallholder farmers. And these drought-tolerant crops also promoted as a income generating, and also they have the benefits to the nutritional diversity at the household level through the product diversification, and also you use them for the reducing the drudgery. We also explore the digital agriculture.
See whether we can bring him back. Hello? You can share your slides and continue if you are online. You are muted.
Hope you are hearing me.
Yes, we are hearing you.
Hello?
Yes. Are you able to continue?
Can I go ahead, or it is already time is over?
Just continue and summarize, please. We hope we are not going to lose you again.
Yeah, I will try. Quickly run the slides.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, then.
Okay.
Sorry, as I mentioned, the internet was a bit unstable. Um, uh,
come later to online, we will be able to give you maybe some minutes, few minutes, to just 1 or 2 minutes, and then we can give the participants an opportunity to ask you some questions. So we need to continue to the next session because of time. We want to introduce 2 panelists. The first panelist is Olivia Odhiambo. Olivia Odhiambo is the Climate Policy Director, Africa. Olivia is actually an alumni of Egerton University. Kyoko already talked about is going to debate or discuss issues of climate together with Dr. Kirui. So Olivia works in Kenya. She has a lot of policy expertise in climate issues in Africa. She has worked extensively in partnership that lead to biodiversity and nature conservation. She has been a program manager in Biodiversity International Africa Secretariat. She's also worked on resource conflict in Forest Action Network, and she's going to discuss quite a number of issues on the forest and climate change. Dr. Kirui is a member of Egerton University academic department. He's a lecturer in the Department of Natural Resources. Bernard is a natural resource scientist. He's focused on forest ecosystems and is keen in providing solutions on conservation challenges. He has a PhD from the Edinburgh Napier University. He has an MSc from Egerton University, and he has a lot of expertise in mangrove studies in coastal region of Kenya. He also has 20 years of teaching experience and is currently working on climate action issues. Thank you, the panelists, for today. We will give Kyoko an opportunity to ask you several questions. You can start with Olivia, you can go first, and then Kirui. We will give you opportunity for one person to discuss, and then maybe later on we ask both of you questions so that we save on time. Welcome again to the discussion.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Paul Kimoto, and apologies to the participants and also those who are with us here and those following us online for that technical hitch. We just hope that we could be able to get the professor later on so that we can finish with his presentation, which was really, really very insightful. I had already gotten attracted to the money issues he was talking about, that Kenya loses about 2 to 2.4% of its GDP due to climate change effects. Professor Aduda, you said you are the maths person, eh? Perhaps by the end you will already tell us, what are we talking about there? It's money that perhaps could take Egerton University how many years? Perhaps even 10 years. Who knows, you know? Yeah. But thank you so much for joining us. Start looking at you know. And they also come in terms, terms such as climate smart agriculture, resilience, climate change information, RED plus, and so on and so forth. And of course, we are having this discussion in the context of whatever we've achieved as a country, as the global family in the implementation of the Paris Agreement 2015 and all the other discussions that always happen under the UNFCCC. This year, we will be in Baku, Azerbaijan, right?
Yes.
For COP29. You'll be telling us perhaps If you, perhaps you, Miss Olivia, whether you could sponsor one or two people under your institution to attend this. But anyway, that's a story for another day. Today, we want to have a discussion on the environmental, technical, and policy approaches in the context of climate change information and adaptation for a resilient community. Very worded, right?
Yeah,
but perhaps in a nutshell, what exactly is that?
Thank you very much, Kyoko. I'm proud to be back here, and I'm happy to see lots of familiar faces. Let me put the conversation into context by saying that globally, we are faced with a triple planetary crisis of biodiversity loss, climate change, and pollution, and more specifically, plastic pollution. So countries have been coming together every year, the COP that you have mentioned, to look at how we address these global threats as a global community, because we realize that it's not a one-man show, it's not a one country that will offer solutions for this. So the UNFCCC is the body that brings countries together to formulate and agree on the pathway to addressing climate change. And over the years, it has been realized that nature is actually part of the solution. I've been engaging in the climate policy space and the forestry sector, and what I want to share is that forestry is both a solution and a threat. And I'll start by saying that it is a solution because forestry sector holds a third of the carbon stocks in the atmosphere. A third. So that's quite a big percentage of carbon stocks when you think of it in the global context. So if these forests are degraded or they are destroyed, it means that a third of carbon stocks that are held are released. So the solution is holding the forest, keeping the forest intact, and the challenge is that with the land use changes, with the demand for agriculture land, demand for land for settlement, lots of these forests are being converted, and as a result, carbon emissions are released to the atmosphere. So Kyoko, in 2015, if I can take us back in history, countries agreed to cooperate in addressing climate change. Kenya is one of the countries that signed to the Paris Agreement, and we agreed that each country will make a commitment. So I would put it in simple terms that we made the Paris Agreement is a bottom-up approach where countries look at their national context and agree on how, within their context, they can reduce emissions. And then this goes to each and every one of the 96 countries, and it is reported. I think my colleague
Thank you.
will touch on the reporting.
Maybe just before we go to Dr. Kirui, I like your mention of the bottom-up approach on matters, dealing with the environment. I don't know if you can actually realize that I am dressed on a bottom-up, but I know you're already introducing the concept of NDCs, right? Yes, is it possible to just explain to us what NDCs are? Yes. Because we don't want to really assume that everybody participating in this conversation really understands these issues in details.
Okay.
And then we go to Dr. Kirui.
All right. So let me just start from the bottom up because it's a familiar term with all of us. The bottom up simply means that countries are expected to look at their national context and develop commitments to addressing climate change. And this is put together in a nice document called the Nationally Determined Contributions. Kenya has committed to reduce its emissions by 32% by 2030. And so this means every 5 years we are supposed to report the progress in reducing our emissions by 32%. And these NDCs now go into specific sectors: the forestry sector, agriculture, the waste sector, transport and energy, and looks at which are some of the ways that these sectors can contribute to meeting the target of 32%. Yeah.
so much. In our own way, as an institution, there is a way we are also committed to that. Our Vice Chancellor is here. If you engage him, he will tell you the amount of work we are doing in preservation of the Mau and so on and so forth. But, you know, I'm not even the best person to also talk about that. We have Dr. Kirui here with us, who is a lecturer, Department of Natural Resources. I was actually, you know, supposed to ask you what role the academia can play. But even without that, I am aware that universities are actually playing a great role, and that's why I started with Egerton University. Nairobi University actually at the moment has a chancellor who is actually an expert on climate change, so we cannot really say universities are not doing something. Let's start with you, Dr. Kru. What is Egerton doing?
Thank you. Thank you. Before I answer what Egerton is doing, I wish to take this opportunity to thank the university, Egerton University, the management for this periodic organization of conferences, because it gives us, as academia, space to let the world out there know what we are doing and assist us in making impact in the society. At Egerton University, we have a tradition of planting trees. I recall during my days, I was also a student here some many years ago. During our days, we used to have what are called environmental weeks. I know we still have, but a number of the trees that you see around the compound are a result of these environmental initiatives. I know this tradition has been going on, still going on. If I pick the last 1 year, we've planted over 14,000 trees around the university boundary line and also in parts of our university land. So this is not only as a moral sense of doing it, but we're also addressing the national commitments of the 15 billion trees that we ought to to achieve in another target that we ought to achieve in 10 years. Yes.
So much. I was also expecting you to also mention the fact that even these days, we have an athletic event which is also geared towards preservation of the environment. The other day, we also did quite, the handing over sites and so on. But don't worry, I'm here as the archive for that history. And today, I would really want us to have a very engaging discussion. This being our last panel discussion, I will be opening the floor pretty early today so that we can really engage. Climate change, if we don't take care of our climate, we'll see a lot of troubles in the days ahead. And I cannot explain this better than what you already know. Kindly, the two of you, and we'll start with you, Olivier. Kenya, as a party to the Paris Agreement, is expected to be submitting its first biennial report, beginning by 31st December this year. On some of those issues you already pointed out. What do we expect, if you have an idea?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. In the last COP that took place, globally we were taking stock of how far we have come in terms of reduction of emissions. And globally it was reported that we are way below the target of 2 degrees. In fact, we are heading towards 2.5 and even 3 if we continue with business as usual. So this year, Kenya is expected to submit its biennial report showing its actual progress and what its updated NDC will likely reflect. So this is a process where a country like Kenya will look at the energy sector, to what extent are emissions either reducing or increasing, the industrial sector, the transport and the waste sector. In Kenya, I would say agriculture and forestry are the biggest emitters. And because of the reasons that I mentioned, is that there's a high conversion of forest land into settlement and into agriculture. And there's high conversion of forest land into settlement and agriculture, and this by effect is releasing a lot of emissions into the atmosphere. Before I hand it over to Dr. Kirui, let me talk about also the role of the private sector. So it's the NDCs are essentially government commitments, but private sector is increasingly aware of their footprint. Let me talk about their carbon footprint, and many have voluntarily started making commitments to reduce their footprints. And the initial step that many private companies are doing is to take a stock take of their emissions. So there's a scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 emissions. Scope 1 emissions deals with the localized emissions, whether it's in form of the transport, the kind of vehicles, the fleet of vehicles that the company is using, the emissions from their energy sources, if it's relying on diesel, for instance. Scope 2 emissions then looks at their secondary emissions. That now touches on the external factors such as their customers, the end users of their product. And then scope 3 emissions looks at the areas where they don't have direct influence on. Let's say, for instance, it's a horticultural company that is taking stock of their emissions. They don't have control over where the flowers will end up, but they also have to take account and report that these flowers are ending up in Europe, and these are the kind of emissions they are contributing. So everybody has a role to play. It's not just a responsibility of the government, but even private sector is increasing their ambition.
Yeah, I like your mention of the term carbon print, carbon footprint. And I know the moment we mention that, what usually comes into people's minds is, perhaps if I am not driving, I don't have a car, I don't run any industry, then I'm not making any contribution. But actually, even in our households, when we throw away food, that also actually contributes to the carbon footprint, because it ends up in the dump sites, and there's a lot of production of methane. And actually, methane is the worst, than even carbon monoxide and so on and so forth. In 2020, I got some funds from the African Academy of Sciences to produce a radio documentary on the production of methane. And I got to understand that even at the dumping site, these fires we see are not because, the people living there have lit them, but it's actually partly because of methane and so on and so forth. Dr. Kirui, what else can you say about the kind of report that Kenya will be presenting to the UNFCCC this year?
Thank you, Kyoko. Perhaps before I answer that, I just want to say, Olivia has mentioned something about NGOs and carbon, their role in the carbon credit space. Just to take you back, there are two tiers of reporting. There's what is called voluntary carbon reporting, and there's what is called compliance carbon reporting. The NGOs have taken over the space of voluntary carbon reporting, and as is usual, they're always ahead of, unfortunately, the government in implementing the Paris Agreement provisions. But the government of Kenya, as she has rightly said, we are expected to make our what are called BTRs, biannual transparency reports, at the end of this year. And this BTR is a shift from what has been happening. She mentioned that we were expected to do a national determined contribution reporting every 4 years. Now, from the outputs of the COP28 and the last one that was in, the one that was in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt 27, and the one that was in Dubai, I think about 2 or 3 months, countries are now expected to do a reporting every 2 years, meaning there are a number of opportunities for us as a country. I'm in one of the working groups that is developing the Kenyan reporting for the report for, and we have a deadline by 31st of this December. And there are a number of things that we as a universities can do. Reporting depends mostly on data from every sector. She's mentioned the 5 key sectors, what we call agriculture, forest, and land use. There's energy, there's industrial, there is also waste, and transport system. So all those sectors are supposed to give their reports on what is our current status regarding emissions, and when we talk greenhouse gas emissions. Now, what is required is data. What we are using as a country, there are 3 tiers. I know she spoke about scopes. That's a different thing. There are 3 tiers of data reporting. There's a global data reporting, which is developed by IPCC, which is a global think tank on climate change. It's made up of experts in climate change issues. So they've developed methodologies, but these apply to global scale. Those are tier 1 kind of data. There's also tier 2, which is a national averages, data determined based on national averages. Then there's tier 1, where we come in. What we get from our, local level kind of research that we conduct. Unfortunately, most of our third world countries are using the tier 1s, the international level kind of reporting. Why? Because we don't have data. We need to start thinking seriously as a university. Is our data aligned to our national and international commitments? When you sit with your student and you write a proposal, let me give an example of enteric methane. Livestock is, we are told if livestock was a country, they could be number 3 in terms of ranking of methane emission. If we take livestock, for instance, enteric emission, how is our data? I'll give you an example. Ghana, in Kenya, we are still using the IPCC guidelines, which is a tier 3, international scale kind of data reporting with a lot of coarseness in terms of data, okay? Ghana has shifted. I like using Ghana because I think we are peers with Ghana in terms of development. We are a third world country. We more or less share a lot of things. Ghana has moved from using tier 3, the IPCC guidelines, to tier 2, and even to tier 1 in a space of about 5 years. Why? Because they've internalized this ETR, what I call enhanced transparency reporting, to their curriculum, to their national programs. And as such, even in the universities, the kind of research that is being conducted informs the national reporting that we are talking about, this 2-year biannual transparency reporting. So we have opportunities there as a country. Let's align our data, collection to the national levels. Another one, just before I finish, there's also, within UNFCCC, which is mentioned, there are opportunities for scientists to join what is called Technical Evaluation Review Panel. Each and every one of us here can join. What you only need to do is to apply online, get nominated by the country focal points. I think we have 3 in the country. I think the PS, the CS, and the Climate Directorate Secretariat. Once you do that, you do some exams. And once you pass that, you are now a certified international expert. I'm seeing opportunities here because come end of 2024, there'll be a lot of reports that have been sent by countries, over 96. And the structure of this panel, of the review panel, is such that it's a mix of scientists reviewers from third world countries and those from the developed countries. So there are opportunities for us here. It takes not much, perhaps. You only need to read for the exam and to do it. Coming to the last one, sorry, I've taken. What are we doing in terms of building our youth? There are opportunities here. We have students here who are postgraduates and undergraduates. I think as academia, we need to sit down, mainstream these climate change issues, and go deep down into reporting, especially where there are opportunities. so that in another 10, 15 years, we'll have another Olivia sitting here and telling us the progress in terms of reporting of NDCs by Kenya. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I have a lot of love for this topic, so if I am not guided on time, we could do it up to until the sun comes down. But we need to end it in the next 15 minutes, and for that purpose, I would like to open the floor. Anyone with a question, a contribution, a clarification that needs to be done, this is your opportunity, and that also involves the audience that we have online. All right, so anyone who would like to make a contribution, but I hope you're getting, some of the issues that they are raising up to and including the fact that all of us have a personal responsibility in ensuring that, climate change is mitigated. Simple actions like just switching off your fridge if you must not use it. Sindio? All right, any question? Yes, Professor Aduda, the first one. Any other question? Let's have some questions. This is our life, really, climate change. Okay, let's start with Professor Aduda as some other participants also think about it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. My question goes to Olivia. You talked about loss of diversity in forest covers, and now we have a national goal to plant billions of trees. And I'm seeing the tendency to go for, is it exotic, this, and that's going to accelerate loss of tree diversity. How do we solve that problem?
So much. We have Dr. the chair of the conference committee.
My question goes to Dr. Kirui. I want to know how the data that we gather from our research can be included in the national data platform for climate and greenhouse gas emissions.
Thank you so much. We have some two more at the back, then we respond to those first and see whether we can have time.
Yeah, thank you so much for the discourse. This is actually a discourse that is in my DNA. Now, you realize that to realize the national determined contribution as a country, universities as government agencies needs to play a very key role on the implementation. So my question goes to Dr. Kirui. You realize that at Egerton University, we are quickly losing our green space. If you go to all these buildings around, we have so many paths that have come up and our grass is no longer safe, that we have paths everywhere. You look at the university, go around, we are quickly losing our green space. Now, if you think about implementation at the higher level, like at the national level, I don't know, you have mentioned about the tires. Now, I want us to look at the university. What do you think are some of the just local level interventions that we can implement, like just saving our green space? So maybe as academia and as members who would likely to give that data, I don't know, where do we begin? Like I'm seeing us losing the green space every day, and maybe I don't know where to begin. So where do we begin? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
My name is Dennis Odero. I'm a student here and a climate champion. My question goes to Olivia. How do you involve youths in your networks and programs? Thank you.
All right, let's have a response to those first.
I didn't get the last question. Could he repeat it?
I'm saying I'm climate champion, youth climate champion. Just want to know how you normally bring youth on board in your programs and networks.
One opportunity to engage you after this.
Okay. Thank you. I'll start off with Professor Aduda's question on the 15 billion tree campaign. I think it's a very noble initiative by the government. It's an ambitious target that is achievable. I've interacted with the strategy and also the secretariat, and I think the government is on the right path. In terms of whether to go for exotic trees or not, is debatable really, because the best approach when recovering a forest or a degraded area is natural regeneration, just leaving a place to regrow the original species that existed in that area. But that takes a while. That would take 10, 15 to 20 years. And this campaign is a 10-year campaign. So I think because the government wants to see results in the next 10 years, there is a mixed approach of using both exotic and perhaps natural regeneration. My take or my advice would be that research institutions such as Egerton need to partner with the Secretariat to give information on which are the best species that would work where. Secondly, I've seen that the Secretariat is decentralizing the implementation to different parastatals and different government ministries by giving actually directives and targets to different government ministries. So this gives also an opportunity for even more closer interaction with the implementation of the 15 billion tree campaign. So let us engage, let us share our research, let us share our recommendations to this noble campaign so that the Secretariat is informed. It is being led by KFS, and I believe also KFS has the best interest of, planting the right species across the country. But it would be useful also for the research community to interact with this process. On youth engagement, I think youth are a force to reckon with. We cannot ignore youth when you talk about climate change. For us, the best way we have engaged youth is through engagement in training, engagement in implementation on the ground. For instance, the